See. Hey there, welcome to ATL and 29, a podcast that looks at the NBA from the starting point of Atlanta. My name is Kevin Chouinard. I'm here with Tyler Jones and Glen Willis. We're recording just a couple of days after our last podcast, and I guess that's because there is a lot going on. And I guess maybe I should start with, do you think Terry Rozier was really point shaving?
For his sake, I hope not. But I don't know. He was playing on the Hornets when that happened, so uh, you know, who knows? But I hope not. Like, because I wouldn't want the federal government investigating me personally. But
Wait, do we still have a federal government?
It's a different podcast,
Crickets.
Kevin.
Oh, a different
yeah, it's a
podcast. I'm
different
sorry, my
podcast.
bad, my bad, my
Sorry.
bad.
No, that's on me. I
All right, yeah, I'm a little punch drunk and goofy. So, Hawks, maybe trading, maybe trading for Brandon Ingram. How do we feel about Brandon Ingram? What do you
Yeah,
think,
I mean,
Glenn?
yeah. So I put out like a 5 minute video on my Patreon today, kind of giving my thoughts on it. I'll just try to summarize here. It's you can join as a free member and see it. It's not one of those you have to be a paid member to see. 80% of what I put out goes to everybody, whether you're a paying subscriber or not. So for me, I think one thing we've learned about this team is that they have to add a serious offensive piece, right? The defense they've really moved the needle on defense, but what I said in the video was it's hard to know if Jalen's self creation is ever going to get to a point where he can be the second guy in the offensive pecking order. Not today. He's not the shooter one would need to be to typically have that role in a good team, and then his self creation in the form of creating his own shot not far enough along for that either. So I think on the next really good Hawks team, he's more of a third guy. You know, And for me, is bring Ingram a good target or not really comes down to price,
yeah,
right? Now we all know like he's had a hard time staying on the court in his career, and he's missed a lot of games. Um, but he's what is he 6'8", 6'9", 6'10". He can't he has self creation ability. He has length on defense. He's not this high level defender, but at least he kind of fits the template of having some length to use on defense. And so if the Pelicans are just like, we're not going to have him next year, so we're going to turn him into something that makes for sense for us to maybe have something to kind of work with going forward. If the price is right, I'm fine, with the acquisition. I think for me, I think based upon the reporting I've seen, I think Ingram's agent and representatives have um overestimated what I think his market will be as a free agent at the end of the season. And I think that matters too. So what it comes down to me is, let's say they could send Pella and Bogey, the two guys that aren't playing right now. Um, if if the Pelicans want that Sacramento pick, I don't think that's some like precious asset. I don't think you should just give it away. But I wouldn't send the Sacramento pick unless the Hawks intend to keep Ingram beyond this season. If they're just trying to clear salary off the books, I would not send the Sacramento pick to make that happen. Um, and so that's what it comes down to for me. But there's downside risk because he typically only plays 50-ish
yeah,
games a year
50
in a lot of
games.
seasons. So that's the thing to think about.
Yeah, and that's I'm in the same boat as you are, Glenn, about the price because I mean the player that is the archetype of player they need. They need a big forward creating, you know, offensive, guy you can center your offense around. It was uh if we go back to the losing streak when Trae was out, it was really noticeable how Okongwu and Pete Krejci had nobody to play through on offense to start the game until DeAndre Hunter entered the game where they could at least make him the focal point of the offense in the half court. They literally started the game first 5 minutes just with nothing on offense for like 5 minutes of professional basketball. And that's basically been the issue for the Hawks the entirety of the season. Um, when either Trae, when Trae's out the game, but it becomes really noticeable when Trae's either out or limited. how little offensive creation they have. But the thing is with me with trading for Ingram, the Hawks aren't in a pressure situation where they have to acquire him, you know, like the, winning the title has not been the goal for this Hawks team all year. I think they're perfectly comfortable where they are in relation to the standings. They expected to be here to start the season. That everything they've done throughout the offseason into this season leads me to believe they figured they'd be around the play-in range of a basketball team. It's unfortunate that injuries have kind of tanked their ceiling, but that's the NBA. That happens, and you have to move on. So, like to me, I wouldn't like. To me, giving up a first round pick is just out of the question for Ingram, even if you were willing to resign him. Because to me, we can have this conversation in the offseason in a potential signing trade. Like I'm not like as of right now, like I'm going with the Pelicans. I'm like Bogdan Bogdanovich and Clint Capella have value in this league. Like teams are willing to trade good pieces, good stuff for those two veterans who are proven playoff players as well. I'm not just going to attach a pick as if I have to clear salary. Like I understand Bogey's had a bad start to the season, but everybody knows the caliber of basketball player Bogey is when he's healthy. Like he's kind of a certified product. I understand he's on the older side, and there might be some downturn, but it's not. It wouldn't be this. Like this has been a injury plagued season for him, and I think smarter teams understand that. And like Bogey has a real market in this league, so that's where I'm like Brandon Ingram's only played 18 games this season. He hasn't played. Part of it might be the Pelicans aren't going to play him until after the trade deadline, just in case he gets hurt again. But that's the issue with Ingram. Like you can't trust him to stay on the floor, and that's really important for a Hawks team that's always going to be reluctant to pay the tax. They need their guys who they're going to pay money towards to be able to stay healthy for extended periods of time.
And to be clear, Glenn, when you say price, you're talking about the assets that you're giving up in a trade, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because to me, it's like there's two aspects of price here. The one is the one that you mentioned. The other is what does this next contract look like? Because he's obviously a talented player, and I think he's in his age 27 season, something like that, age 28. So like he's coming into his prime, his late prime. But like it's really, to me, that's just trying to price his next contract is a really difficult exercise because he doesn't play that much. And I think he's the right archetype for what fits. The one thing that I would add that I don't think we've brought up yet is like, I don't think that if you take a flyer on Ingram, and even if you give up, let's say, the Kings pick, it doesn't have to be a move that you have to now sign him to his next contract. I don't think that's mandatory because I don't think, to me, like I think his next deal, if let's say he gets traded to the Hawks and they decide, you know what, not for us. I don't think he just escapes an unrestricted free agency because I think to get him the deal that he wants, there just aren't going to be enough contending teams with cap room to just go and absorb that deal. I think it has to be a sign and trade. So while you're not going to get the same caliber of assets that you're going to give up, you're probably going to get something back. And even that's fraught with a little bit of peril because you're going to have to probably match contracts in that situation. And then if that's a fairly big contract that he signed, you have to be very careful about the money that you take back.
Yeah, and I mean the Hawks have gone through it this season. Had they've had two roster spots given to guys who probably wouldn't be on the team if it weren't for the trade they had to do with DeJounte Murray. The Hawks really going to put themselves in that situation again. That's where
Yeah.
it's like, I'm pretty sure next year they're going to try to actually try to win some games here. Try to actually push forward into the standings, considering the growth that they have shown this year. Like they're not going to be looking to take another step back. So I'm not saying that the Hawks shouldn't trade for Ingram, but it just goes back to like if the Pelicans are in an understanding that he's not going to resign with them, and the Hawks can just trade Bogey, Capella, and I'm like give up a second, Hawks can take a flyer on it because the issue with Ingram is I'm not sure I want to sign him to a long-term contract
Right.
extension that he's willing to take. That's really the crux of the problem with any Ingram trade. So that that it hasn't happened yet would tell me that it's probably not going to happen just because there's so much to going into an Ingram trade. It would be easier for the Hawks to trade Bogey to clear salary, like just flat out, like than what we're suggesting here with Ingram, who again would help this team now, would help this team in the future because they clearly do, like Glenn said, they do need somebody to be another creator to play alongside Trae. Like Trae, you could see scenarios where Trae brings really the best out of Brandon Ingram, especially with what Trae's been able to show as a screener sometimes with DeAndre Hunter in particular. Like, those actions with Trae and Ingram could really, really unlock some stuff out of Ingram's game that hasn't been consistently shown in his career when he's on the floor. That's just really the issue. But it, you can go back and forth because Glenn brought it up again. The Hawks need more offensive talent, period. And a guy of Ingram's talent wouldn't be available if there wasn't risk involved. So like to me, if he's willing to sign a contract that's favorable to the Hawks, the Kings pick, okay. But if not, if he's not going to be here next year or there's no guarantee, I can't give up that Kings pick because the Kings are going to be, this is a good draft, and the Kings are probably even if they trade Fox, they're probably going to still try to win games this year. I don't get the impression that the Kings are looking to tank out, and rebuild. I don't think they're trying to trade Sabonis and sell the rest of their team. So like I'm still gambling on the Kings still being competitive in the West and trying to make a play.
Yeah, the contract thing for me is I think about comparable guys and DeMar DeRozan's 35 years old. He got 370 at age 35. I think if you ask most NBA front offices and coaches, they'd say they trust DeMar DeRozan more than they trust Brandon Ingram. DeMar DeRozan he's played at a high level for a long time. Ingram's really never kind of got to that level and kind of really stayed at that level and been that kind of impactful player. But Ingram's a lot younger, But so for me, like I think the reporting was that Ingram wanted like north of 40 million a year. I think that's a ridiculous number for him to expect, given injury history, et cetera. Is he a top 50 player in the league? I think that's debatable. Depending. But there's probably maybe one season in his career where you could say, okay, that season maybe he was in that range of top 60 or something like that, right? But he's not consistently. DeRozan's been up there for years, right? In that range of players for years. And so for me, like, 360, like DeRozan would probably hear this and laugh, at me saying that. But the second apron, the apron, the impact of the apron is a real thing now. And if you're not top 30, top 40, whatever, you're in a tier of guys that start to get squeezed by that. That's what happened to DeRozan last year, and why he had to go to Sacramento to get his best contract.
I'm
So
I'm
for me, it's interesting to think about. I think it's in three years, 60 to 70 million. Not all that different from what DeRozan got, and going 3 years is risky for a guy that just has had trouble staying on the court. So it's a tough call.
um I'm gonna have to disagree with you a bit, Glenn, about at least Ingram's impact as a player. When he's on the floor, he helps his team win games in ways that DeRozan can't just because of his size. Like he's just a bigger player. And like we can talk, like
He's
DeRozan,
enormous. He's one of
like
those people that you see in person and you're like,
Ingram,
who the hell
Ingram
is that?
is legitimately 6'9", 6'10", and that's such a massive difference than what DeRozan could ever bring to a floor where every team has to play DeRozan at the power forward position, and it just kills your defense. We're currently seeing with the Hawks right now with trying to play DeAndre Hunter at the four. It just doesn't. There's like a level of athleticism, wingspan, length that you need at that position that guys like DeRozan and Hunter don't bring. That Ingram would, combined with Ingram's very real shot creation ability, very real passing. He has his flaws. He doesn't take enough threes, et cetera, et cetera. But like, I think on the Hawks, he could be playing the best basketball of his career with the Hawks, playing alongside Trae Young. I'm not worried about it. The contract is the thing though. Like, what do you pay? Like, because it's less about the player. Personally, I think he's a caliber basketball player. If he's not on Siakam's tier, I think he might be like slightly below that. But like when he's healthy and available, he's that good. The issue is that he's never healthy and available. It's always a some type of injury that just knocks him out for extended periods of times. He's not able to play through injuries in ways that you really need for an NBA player to play. Like that's just and so like that's where I'm like, 3 for 60 sounds ridiculous to me on one side in terms of the player, but like in terms of his ability to stay on the floor, like I mean, I hate to do this, but we see it with Bogey this year. Like, and we've seen with Bogey a couple of years in his Hawks career, his inability to stay healthy for the Hawks has killed some of their seasons. It just has. And so, like, you're gonna go from Bogey to another guy who can't stay healthy. That doesn't mean he won't be able to stay healthy in the future, but it is a problem, and it's not something you can dismiss lightly and be like, and just be like, yeah, I'm gonna give up the Kings pick and I'm gonna sign him to a 3 year or 4 year, 120+ million dollar contract extension. Like I don't know what Ingram's looking for in free agent. I'll be fascinated by what the final number he gets because like it's just one of those things where you hate to kill the guy, but man, like the Pelican season has just multiple Pelican seasons have been ruined by his inability to stay on the floor, combined with Zion's inability to stay on. Like it's just and that stuff will ruin a team. It just will. So it's a tough it's a tough negotiation. That's why it's a fascinating theory, but I don't think it happens just because there's so much unknown with Ingram. At least for right now, we'll see what his number comes through in the off season. But like, yeah, I would like the player and I would like the talent, but I'm not worried about the fit. It's just more about his ability to stay healthy.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate the wording I chose is that I think if you ask NBA coaches and personnel, they would say they trust DeRozan more. That's
Yes, yes,
he has a
Sure.
baseline that's consistently there, right? So that's the thing. That's the thing for me. Now, other reporting suggests Toronto's trying to get in the mix with him. Be interesting to see what that is. Some of the reporting is that there are people talking about Fox now that there's some crazy 14 trade that I don't know. I can't tell what reporting is real or not around that. I have no idea. And then there's reporting that the Lakers and Heat are chasing Bogey too. So with the Lakers, it's hard to kind of see something that I love there. I guess Gabe Vincent would help the Hawks as a guy who gives them some depth and a little bit of size at the point guard position, but it's not my first choice. I had no idea what Miami was in the Hawks, and I have no idea like what that looks like at all. And then in Phoenix, it's like I think if you talk to people, it's like, do you want Nurkic? Like, you're really bringing back basically the same financial commitment you have with Bogey for an aging big center that's not even playing for the team he's on right now. you know, and so there's just a lot of reporting out there that this seems, kind of interesting there, but
Yeah, I mean, I
we'll
think it's
see.
going to be
Like I said, I
hard.
think if
You
the
look at
price
these
is
teams. Oh, sorry.
something, no, but
I was just going to say, like, when you see like, okay, the Lakers are interested in Bogey, I don't necessarily think it has to be a 1-to-1. I think, a lot of these deals are going to end up being 3-team, 4-team, 5-team trades. So it might not be an asset package that just comes back from Los Angeles.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, and then
probably
and
could
then
say
a
the
lot of
same
teams,
with the Heat too.
yeah,
The Heat are in a
yeah,
similar situation.
and a lot of teams are going to be opportunistic. If Memphis wants to get Butler, right, and I think the reporting that you see is that Butler doesn't want to go to Memphis. Do they need to move Marcus Smart to create room to take on Butler's? There may be opportunities to kind of swoop in and get a guy that for next to nothing of cost, that can make a difference for your team. A veteran, better. So sometimes the right approach is to be opportunistic about and have to give yourself some flexibility to like, oh, this team needs to clear $40 million of salary off their cap sheet. Like we can help them with that, and that might be something that let the Hawks kind of make a move that you're not even thinking about right now.
And that's kind of what I was trying to allude to is like the Hawks aren't in a pressure side situation where they have to get somebody of Brennan's caliber right now. Like it's not, you know, they still have they have a little even though they don't have the draft pick, they do have a grace period in part because of the Lakers and Kings picks that they have in this draft. So they have a little bit of a grace period to be more sit back and observe what these other teams are trying to do and try to pounce on somebody and maybe get something in return that can help their future instead of the right now. The trade deadline's interesting, but like, I uh can we talk about Trae Young snub for a couple seconds? Like, I'm
Wait,
sorry.
okay, sure, go for it.
I mean, it's just the thing about the trade deadline. Like, things change so quickly. It's really hard to like pinpoint what the 29 other teams are trying to do compared to the Hawks, what they're trying to do. So, I'm just more like, man, it's known, but it really does suck on a as a fan of Trae and as a fan of the Hawks that Trae just isn't respected in the NBA in the ways that he should be. Like, apparently when the vote was cast, the Hawks were 22 and 21. So like it wasn't winning why he didn't make it. They looked at his shooting percentages and said he's not that he's worse than these other guys, but it just completely dismisses his passing and it's frustrating and his playmaking. He's the best playmaker in the NBA. He gives the Hawks a chance every night with his offense. Uh, so like that sucks. And like it, it's just one of those things where if you're not tuned in and locked into what teams are like these coaches, and it's frustrating because from the coach because they know better. They know how they guard the Hawks. Like there are guys who like all due respect to there should be a level of precedent that goes on it. I mean, Trae could be shooting better and playing better, but like look who he's playing with. Nobody in that starting lineup is a good shooter. He doesn't start with a single good shooter and he plays like 15 to 20 minutes every night with guys who cannot consistently make open 3 pointers. But he makes it work anyway. He makes it work anyway on offense. And then I don't know. I don't get it. I really don't get it. I think the way the All-Star game has been set up recently with how they completely nullified the fan vote isn't good for the sport. Like I, I don't know. The All-Star game doesn't matter. I know
It
ultimately,
doesn't
but
matter.
like just for like this matters for Trae's Hall of Fame,
Right,
candidacy. Like for him he should be a 6-time All-Star. Like
right. So
straight
do you
up.
do you think he's the number one substitute? Like somebody gets hurt, they need another player. Do you think he's like the first name to call?
I
He
hope
would have
so.
been. He would have
Yeah.
been, but the Hawks are losing now. So like, who
Eh,
knows?
the thing, yeah, and the thing I always want to say, like, I liked Quinn's answer. Like Quinn's like, no disrespect to anybody that made it. Like number one, the roster should be bigger now. They had the same size roster they had when there were like eight fewer teams in the league or whatever way back
That's right.
when, right? So that's one thing. But the second thing is like, I don't want to tell a Miami Heat fan that they shouldn't be excited that Tyler Hero made the All Star team.
I do. I do.
I was gonna
Fans of those
say,
teams, yeah, fans of those
enjoy the
teams,
wrongness.
yeah, yeah. I mean, but like that's normal for a fan
Yeah.
base
No,
to
of
root
course.
for the
For sure.
guy that whatever, right? So I'm and it's and I, to me, the dumbest thing I ever see on Twitter is fans of different teams going at each other. Like, of course, they're going to advocate for the team they root for. It's just a really kind of dumb thing. But for me, anyone who thinks Tyler Hero is in the same class of players Trae Young is doesn't know crap about basketball. you know. And Hero's had a good season, but Trae is so much more impactful, right? So much more
Right.
impactful. And no one can talk me off of that view. Like Damian
Yeah.
Lillard
No.
making the team. Damian Lillard is a first ballot Hall of Famer, right? I mean
If
that
salaries didn't matter and you just said, "Hey, let's swap Trae for Tyler Hero," Pat Riley would go over to Tyler Hero's house and help him pack suitcases.
he
Forget
would,
Tyler
right,
Hero.
for
If the
sure.
Bucks could trade Dame Lillard for Trae Young, they do it right now.
Oh,
Like, come on. Like
in a
Trae's so
heartbeat.
much better. Trae's
Yep.
better than Dame Lillard is now. Like,
Yes.
no disrespect to Dame Lillard, great player, Hall of Fame career. He's not better than Trae Young.
Not
He
in
plays,
2025.
he plays on a team that's trying to win a title. They traded for him to be the missing piece, and he can't run pick and rolls with Giannis at like a decent level. Like he's not that good at doing it. So it's like he's just out there. Like he plays his best when Giannis is off the floor. I'm like, come on, bro. Trae and Giannis would like be title favorites right now. Like that's how good Trae Young is as a passer. He creates elite shot attempts for the elite guys with everything that he can do on the basketball floor. It's not his fault that the Hawks aren't on the level that is uh that would support Trae Young, you know, elevation. Like the thing about Trae is that he's just small. Like, and so if you're a smaller basketball player, you need shooting, you need spacing, you need other things. But like Trae's like if the talent offensive talent on the Hawks were better, Trae's numbers would be out of this world. It wouldn't be a question about Trae being an all-star or not. But that's just not the case this season. Like he's trying to help these guys. He's trying to elevate Dyson Daniels' career. He's trying to get Zachary Ricochet online. Like he's trying to get Jalen Johnson to the All Star game, which he was doing, by the way, until Jalen had gotten hurt. Like so, it's just kind of frustrating that that particularly Damon Tyler Hero because those are the two guys that got over. You can't count the forwards because just based on how because it's not just to give the fan people listen to podcasts like the all-star reserves are like position bracketed where it's like between front court and backcourt players, so like there's only a certain amount of backcourt spots, and unfortunately for the Eastern Conference had a lot of good guards. Like there
Yeah.
there was always going to be a couple of guards who got snubbed who probably deserved to be in the all-star game. I'm not saying Tyler Hero doesn't deserve to be an all-star. He does. Dame Lillard, I know I went on that rant. He also deserves to be an all-star. So
Great.
does LaMelo Ball. So does even Tyrese Maxey. Like, there's just a lot of great guards in the East right now. But somebody was going to get squeezed, and it's just frustrating to me that somebody who has a legitimate claim to be the best point guard in the NBA. I don't care about the shooting position percentages. You put Trae Young on a team with real offensive talent. That team's going to be top one in the NBA in offensive efficiency. Period. Point blank. Because we've seen it. We've
Sure.
literally seen it a couple years
So
when the Hawks were building on the offensive side of the floor. They were that good offensive.
so quickly, how much of Trey was higher in the fan vote? How much of the coach stuff does any of it still go back to Lloyd Pierce going to the competition committee and saying he doesn't like the way that Trey draw some of his fouls, and then that squabble going on to the point where eventually Lloyd Pierce wasn't the Hawks coach
It's hard.
anymore?
I mean, it's hard. It's hard for me to know how much of that is real. I mean,
Right.
it's hard. It's hard to know. And so
None,
I try not to
none.
get too spun up about that. But I mean, for me, like Damian Lillard has been to me right next to Steph and LeBron, like one of the most entertaining guys to watch in the last 20 years. Like, and so it's hard to like not see him kind of get the gravity that comes with that, right? So
Exactly.
for me, people are like, "Oh, Trey's inefficiency." Trey, as a guard, has a higher true shooting percentage than Alperen Şengün has as a center. Trey has a higher true shooting percentage than Şengün, and he's a freaking center. And he's made the All Star team presumably on his offensive creds, right? And so to me, it's like you want to go pick on Trey's efficiency, like go look at some of the other guys that made the team, you know, and think about that. So for me, is it part of it just people are unimpressed with the Hawks? To Tyler's point, like it's not Trey's fault. Like Trey's first 4 years, maybe 5 years, it was a reboot of the plan every 18 months. You cannot build an organization doing that. You cannot build an organization doing that. They hired Quinn. Landry's in charge now. They've been making, in my view, smart incremental moves since that happened. But it's going to take 2 to 3 years to build this thing up, right? They have a culture now that's way better, I think, than they've had in a long time. Dyson is a massive culture, has had a massive culture impact on this team. Clint has helped in that areas too, other guys too. You know, they're buying in, they're hiring guys, they're acquiring guys and drafting guys based upon guys' willingness to accept the role they're asked to play. That's a part of the culture. So I know Hawks fans, all fans want the team to get there faster, but this is going to take some time to build, and you can't panic move yourself into a deal like you did with DeJounte, right?
Yep.
And side note, hope DeJounte recovers from that Achilles. Hate to see that. But that was, we came out of a Miami series and got embarrassed, so we're going to go pay whatever the Spurs are asking us to pay for DeJounte, and that's how you set yourself back. That Dyson trade recovered some of the assets you needed to have that, but this is going to take some time. And that's probably more than anything what caused Trae to not be on the team is just that people view the Hawks as still in the middle, because they're not paying attention to what that they're actually building a real basketball system and team right now. That's just going to take some time.
Kevin, I don't think the Lloyd had much of anything to do with it. Truthfully, I just think they looked at shooting percentages. They saw Heroes was higher, and they felt like Hero was the better player. Not that he's the better player overall, but that he's been the better player during the season, and he got rewarded for it. And respected, like I said, Hero absolutely deserves to be an all-star. Uh, it's just the Eastern Conference again is guard heavy. So like and Trae, the Hawks weren't winning at a high enough level to get that respect that you would like, from coaches who would just automatically put like if the Hawks were the third or fourth seed, and like this is the reality of the NBA. If the Hawks were healthy like the Knicks have been this year, they'd be up there with the Knicks, with the Bucks, right there. We've seen them. We've seen the talent this team has
They beat
when they're
those
healthy.
teams. They beat those teams.
If they were healthy all season, no massive injury burdens throughout the year, they'd be up there in the top 4 or 5 in the Eastern Conference, and Trae would be an all-star. But because these guys just it's just been it's bad luck, but it's also been unfortunate. It's been a part of the Trae Young era. Nobody can stay healthy consistently other than Trae. Everybody always misses 10 to 15 games. And the Hawks, because they don't go in the luxury tax, because they didn't respect the second round, because they didn't respect the G League for years, don't have the depth to overcome injuries. That's the difference between the Atlanta Hawks, teams like the Memphis Grizzlies, and the Houston Rockets. Did the Houston Rockets look that much better than the Hawks? To me, I mean, I know they just played. It was a second night back to back. The Rockets are a good team. They have their offensive issues. Defensively, they're outstanding. Amen Thompson is an incredible basketball player. But when the Hawks are healthy, they're just as good as these teams. The issue is when they're hurt, they don't have a Jay Sean Tate to go come off the bench. They don't have a Jeff Green as your 15th man. They don't have the depth. They don't have a third center on. They don't have a big third center. Like their third center is Larry Nance. Respect to Larry Nance. He's doing what he can, but like he's limited physically. Like I screenshot it at the end of the game against the Cavaliers before I talk about them for that game a little bit. But it's just like Hawks ran out of the lineup of Trae Young, Garrison Matthews, beat Krejci. It was either Dyson Daniels or another smaller player and Larry Nance against the Cleveland Cavaliers with all their size. Like they just don't have the size anymore. Like it's just it's frustrating. The Hawks built their team around size, and then all their size got hurt. So it's tough.
I want to ask you about that, like kind of all the topics today in one, which is like with this trade deadline coming up, are the Hawks looking for their next center? Are they going to go and get Ayton or Nurkic? And recently it's been
No,
Claxton and Mitchell Robinson, and maybe you can get Robert Williams. Is there some center out there that you think they will want, that you would want? Like, because it seems like, you're talking about this lack of size and lack of depth. Like, it seems like they're going to have to figure out something at center. Are they going to look for this second string center in this kind of deadline? And is there anybody that you absolutely want or don't want?
I don't know, Kevin. Center's not that big a concern to me. You can find a big centers aren't hard to find. Like I don't. That does. I'm so tired. I don't mean to rag on you, Kevin, here, but I'm so tired of the center talk. It doesn't matter that
You
much.
were just
That's just
talking
me.
about centers. You can't pin
I
that
was
on
talking
me.
about
You were just
no, no,
saying
no, no, Kevin,
centers.
Kevin. I was talking about the size of the other four players on the team. You can't play a center
You
of
just
Larry
said God
Nance
bless Larry Nance because he wasn't big enough.
because he's not big enough to support a lineup of Beat Krejci at the position, of DeAndre Hunter at power forward. Like he's not big, like he's not big, athletic, or has the length enough to support that type of lineup. So what I'm saying, they need bigger players to they all year. Biggest issue, no backup power forward. Jalen Johnson goes out the game, the Hawks defense collapses. Mo Gay looks like might be a solution to that problem, but like he has his offensive flaws. Ideally, you want another offensive oriented power forward who can shoot, to give you some type of versatility on the offensive side of the floor, who's also big and won't just kill your defense. Like that's where my thing is. I'm like, they got to get bigger across the board on this team, because we're seeing how weak they look without Jalen right now. Like that's been the issue
But
with.
they're working on it. The 2 and 3. They got Dyson and Ricochet now, right? So at that and the wing, they're getting bigger. Need the same treatment at the 4. For me, after watching Robert Williams play live in Portland, like that dude dominated that game. I mean, dominate. Now he could probably only play 20, 22 minutes a game because of the knee, right? But that's fine for that dude's ability to measure a play as a help defender it is insane. It is ridiculous. The timing, the read, it's like something I haven't seen that in a long time, right? From that. So I mean, if Portland wants to give that guy up, yeah, come on. Let's do a deal here. Mr. Robinson, certainly the size helps going up against like a Jokic or whatever. But I don't know. You're married to drop with him, where Robert Williams, you could put him on a guard in the weak side corner and just let him come to the rim from however you want to do that. So, um, yeah, that's what I think.
And the nice part of it is that whatever center you get, like Trae can make it work
Indeed,
because he is that dude and he should
yep,
be an
he is.
all-star. All right. Well, thank you. That was fun. Good night, Bob.
Good night,
Good
Bob.
night, Bob.